Concept 3, finding the coordinates of a midpoint. Alright, so remember from our vocabulary, a midpoint is the point that's exactly halfway between two other points. And to find this, we are going to go back a couple years to the formula for finding the mean or average of two numbers. Okay, and if you remember, finding the mean of any number of numbers is going to be adding all of them up and then dividing by the number of numbers. Okay, in this case, we're looking for a midpoint, so it's just going to be two numbers. Okay, it's always going to be the two outside points, and we're going to find the mean to find those two, the midpoint of those two numbers. So our formula for this is going to be our x value of our first plus our x value of our second. Okay, and because we have two numbers, we're going to end up dividing that by 2. All right, and that's going to be our x value, our x coordinate for our midpoint. And then same thing for our y, y1 plus y2 divided by 2, and that will give us our x coordinate and our y coordinate. Okay, let's practice that a couple times. So we've got our coordinate right here. I've got a graph, so we can graph it, all right, or we can use our formula. Okay, this first one seems fairly simple, so let's try and graph it. We go 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, negative 4, 1, 2, 3, negative 4. Okay, so between these 2 points, if you just eyeballed it, you'd probably say it's somewhere in there. If we are counting it, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So half of 6 is going to be 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, count over. So it's going to be somewhere on this line, right? And then same thing for my y distance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so it's going to be 3 up or down. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it's going to be somewhere on this line, and that puts my midpoint right there. All right, if I did this using my formula, I would have x value, y value, 2 plus negative 4 divided by 2, and 2 plus negative 4 divided by 2. 2 plus a negative 4 would be negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is going to be negative 1 for my x value, negative 1 for my y value, and that'll give me that midpoint. Okay? All right, let's do another one. We can plot the points, but let's just use the formula to figure it out. So we've got negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. One thing to note is this one turned out to be negative 1, negative 1. Okay, when we have even numbers, okay, all of our numbers here are even, we're going to come out with whole values, okay, whole integers for our coordinates. All right. If we ended up with odd numbers, so they're all odd, we're still going to come out with whole integer values. Okay, so my coordinates that I come out with are still going to be whole integers. Okay, I'm not going to have any decimals or fractions. All right, let's go ahead and plug it in. So we've got a negative 5 plus a negative 1. All right, and that's going to be a negative 6 divided by 2. And I've got a 3 plus 9, which is going to be 12 divided by 2. So this should be a negative 3 and a positive 6. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Oh, did I do something wrong there? Negative 1. Oh, I graphed my point wrong. My formula was going correctly, but I graphed my point wrong. So my point should be up here, which looks like it'll make a little more sense for where my midpoint goes. Okay, so negative 1, 2, 3, positive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And yeah, that looks like that's a good midpoint for those 2 points. Okay. All right, now we'll look at this one where I've got odd numbers and even numbers. Okay, odd coordinates and even coordinates. That means that I'm going to come up with not whole integer values. Okay, I'm going to have decimals. So let's use the formula. Negative 7 plus 4, and I've got 5 plus a negative 2. Negative 7 plus 4 is going to be a negative 3. 5 plus a negative 2 is going to be negative 3. Divide by 2, divide by 2. I'm going to get a negative 1.5. And since this one turned out to be the same way, negative 1.5. All right, so negative 1.5 for my x. Oops, not done yet. And negative 1.5 for my y. And let's go ahead and graph all of those points. So I've got a negative 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Negative 1, 2. And it just so happens that I have a negative. Oh, this should be a positive. Man, I'm making mistakes left and right. Okay, negative 1.5 for my x value and a positive 1.5 for my y value. So right there, doesn't land on a nice intersection, but this should be my midpoint between those 2 points, or my midpoint on the line that goes between those points. Okay? It's nice to be able to graph it, but you won't always get numbers that let you do that. Okay? That's why the formula is so important. Let's do this one real quick. I've got 120 plus a negative 39, and I've got 54 plus 87. 120 minus 39 should be a 81. 81, because 120 minus 40 would be 80. And then 54 plus 87, that should be a 13, 141. Divide by 2, divide by 2. So the midpoint, even though I can't plot these points, I don't have near enough room on my graph, I know that the midpoint between those two is going to be at 40.5 and 70.5.